the rest of their lives behind bars. This is the punishment awaiting the saboteurs who attempted to blow up 2 trains on the Warsaw to Lublin line. This is, of course, if they are caught. We are certain, not just assuming, that both incidents were intentional, had their perpetrators, and that their goal was to cause a railway disaster. The identified individuals are 2 Ukrainian citizens. They had been working with Russian services for a long time. One of them is a Ukrainian citizen convicted in May this year by a court in Lviv for acts of sabotage in Ukraine, who was staying in Belarus. The other is a resident of Donbass. He also entered Poland from Belarus in the fall of this year. Both fled shortly after the Saturday and Sunday attacks through the border crossing in Terespol. This was shortly after the attack, so they had not yet been identified by the authorities. Polish authorities and the prosecutor's office have all the data on these individuals and their images. The National Prosecutor's Office has already launched an investigation into acts of sabotage classified as terrorist activities. The prosecutor of the National Prosecutor's Office in Warsaw today, November the 17th, 2025, launched an investigation into acts of terrorism targeting railway infrastructure and committed on behalf of foreign intelligence services against the Republic of Poland. The proceedings were initiated in relation to a crime, punishable by life imprisonment. One explosive device detonated, the other did not, but both left traces that caught the attention of the investigators. It was possible to determine who purchased the SIM cards used in the phones that remotely detonated the explosives on the Warsaw to Lublin railway line. There are mainly 2 incidents. One concerns the explosion. We can already confirm that the railway tracks on line number 7, Warsaw to Lublin, were blown up. The other concerns damage to the power line and the installation of a camera phone on one of the rails, which was supposed to record. We don't know exactly what yet. A special team has been set up comprising prosecutors, officers from the Central Bureau of Investigation and the Internal Security Agency. They are to determine who remotely detonated the explosives and why one of them did not explode. According to investigators, the secured cards and phones will play a key role in the further investigation. This could not have been a coincidence. It could not have been a random event. We have no doubt that the damage to this track was caused by an explosion. This is indicated by the traces and evidence secured at the scene. We have permission to disclose that we have secured, among other things, a piece of wire. This confirms the information provided by TV Republica about the cable that was to be used to detonate one of the charges. But first things first. On Sunday morning, a train driver reported irregularities in the railway infrastructure in the area of Życin, near the Mika railway station in the Garwolin district. It was only by a miracle that a tragedy was avoided, because the police called to the scene the previous evening found nothing alarming. The patrol that went there did not identify any damage to the infrastructure, although it was late at night, after 10 p.m, so the police's activities in this regard continued until the early hours of the morning. This means that during the night, as many as 12 trains, including passenger trains with hundreds of passengers on board, travelled on the damaged tracks. The cargo exploded while a freight train was travelling from Warsaw to Puławy, without causing it to derail, but only causing minor damage to the floor of the car. The train driver did not even notice the incident as he passed through the area. The lives of many people hung in the balance, but Tusk's government is talking about the success of the services. Surveillance footage from nearby cameras has been secured, although the area itself, from the areas adjacent to the same railway embankment. Numerous materials and items have also been seized, found that may indicate and help identify the perpetrators. This happened on Sunday morning, several hours after the explosion. Then another act of sabotage took place. On the same railway line in Puławy, the traction network was damaged. It is not known whether it was torn down or cut. As a result of the incident, a window was broken on the train. Kierwiński should immediately resign from the Ministry of Internal Affairs because he is responsible for the weakness of this country. Apart from the fact that we are all working towards the same goal and must face these very dangerous, even terrorist acts, we need to understand where they come from. They stem from the enormous weakness of the state. Tusk's government has also exposed its weakness with its disastrous information policy. For many hours, the authorities did not inform Poles about the threat, even though the services knew about it. The government's information came far too late and was basically revealed by the media. So we, as residents of Garwolin County, a large county on the wrong side of the Vistula River, learn everything from the media. And these media have been very inconsistent from the very beginning, because the spokesperson for the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration gave completely different information. The Prime Minister wrote something completely different, and the spokesperson for the Special Services Coordinator wrote something else again. The question that springs to mind, but to which we are unlikely to find an answer in the near future, future is how it is possible that saboteurs, known for their cooperation with Russian services, were able to cross the border with Belarus unhindered and unchallenged. Meanwhile, there is more disturbing news from the Polish railways. Last night in eastern Poland, a Ukrainian railway carriage derailed. This took place right next to a strategic main line leading to the Ukrainian border. The police are investigating the matter, and investigators do not rule out that it could have been an act of sabotage. In connection with this series of incidents, the Polish Prime Minister has decided to introduce the third alert level, Charlie CRP, on selected railway lines. Saboteurs linked to the Kremlin are increasingly jeopardizing the safety of Polish citizens. This is not only a threat, but also a test of how state services operate under the rule of Donald Tusk's government. And all this at a time of growing threat, as warned by, among others, the commander of the United States Armed Forces in Europe. The United States and Europe may have as little as 18 months to prepare for a global conflict with Russia and China. Beijing and Moscow may launch a coordinated attack on Taiwan and NATO's eastern flank as early as 2027. Various types of activities, primarily targeting critical infrastructure, transport infrastructure, communications infrastructure, cyber attacks, increased agency activities. All of this may indicate that these very offensive actions may be the beginning of something much more dangerous. We may also talk about full-scale aggression, which may take place because such voices are being heard from our military and from European and American sources. An attack on railway infrastructure in Poland and a similar incident literally just a few hours ago in Slovenia. A train hit objects left on the tracks. According to Slovenian authorities, they were deliberately placed there by saboteurs. The Prime Minister of Estonia expressed solidarity with the Polish people. And this is how Republican Senator Roger Wicker from the Armed Services Committee assesses the recent attacks by Russian services, including in Poland. What is happening goes beyond Ukraine and Russia and is important for the whole world. Railroad sabotage operations, arson attacks on warehouses in Warsaw and a housing estate in Zamki, and a supermarket in Grodzisk. These are just a few examples from recent months. I don't think it was a coincidence. Poland borders the Russian Federation, which is pursuing an aggressive policy, not just of war against Ukraine, but also a policy of hybrid warfare against NATO as a whole and against Poland. We are dealing with a series of operations, starting with the spread of Kremlin propaganda, followed by a series of arson attacks and acts of sabotage. And the use of Ukrainian citizens, among others, for such attacks is an intentional choice by the Russian services. The perpetrator's nationality can later be leveraged by Kremlin assets to inflame anti-Ukrainian public sentiment. For that reason, Ukrainian collaborators are particularly valuable for carrying out such operations. Services that are interested in weakening the level of security in Poland and also in some way slowing down the flow of military and humanitarian aid which is being carried out through Polish territory to Ukraine. During these hybrid attacks on Poland, state services should act effectively and prioritize the safety of Polish citizens. But Tusk's administration has questionably ordered its priorities. The services are busy prosecuting opposition politicians and therefore do not have time to deal with serious matters. This can also be exploited by a foreign country that organizes various kinds of provocations. Railways, bridges and other sensitive points are patrolled by, among others, a border defense movement. Donald Tusk, meanwhile, seems focused primarily on persecuting his political opponents, dealing with Russian sabotage as an afterthought.
Earlier today, soldiers from across the NATO alliance practiced counter-drone skills in Poland. Personnel from the US, UK, and Romania joined their Polish counterparts at the exercises in Nowa Dęba, in Poland's southeast corner. Poland and other countries on NATO's eastern flank have seen multiple incursions by Russian drones in recent months, some of which were shot down. But shooting down cheaply produced drones with expensive high-tech air defense missiles presents a major challenge for NATO states wary of depleting stockpiles.
A Shahed drone costs anywhere from 60,000 US to 100,000+ US dollars. What we're doing today is a tenth of that cost. So that's our major objective is we have got to find lower cost, both sensors and effectors. So again, the system you'll see today is roughly a tenth of the cost of what it's costing Russia to build and employ a Shahed-type drone system.
One option is the interceptor drone, deployed from a pneumatic launcher, which can be fitted on a pickup truck. These drones aim to interdict and bring down incoming drones. Last week, a Ukrainian Major General, Vadim Skibitsky, told Reuters that Russia plans to manufacture up to 30,000 Shahed drones this year, along with 120,000 of its cheap but devastating glide bombs.
The UN Security Council has adopted a U.S. draft resolution on peace in the Middle East. According to its provisions, international stabilization forces are to be deployed in the Gaza Strip. Control over the enclave is set to be exercised by a peace council chaired by U.S. President Donald Trump. Although the world has welcomed the UN vote, both Israelis and Palestinians are cautious about the plan. Hamas, on the other hand, completely rejects the resolution, which would require the terrorists to lay down their arms. There is no quiet in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Not a day goes by without attacks and clashes between the two sides of the conflict. Despite these incidents, the truce has been maintained so far. Hence, the time has come for the next points of the peace plan presented by Donald Trump in early October. According to diplomats, the resolution just adopted by the UN Security Council is to be the highway to the implementation of the next points. Russia and China abstained from voting. The rest were in favor. Congratulations to the world on the incredible vote of the United Nations Security Council just moments ago, acknowledging and endorsing the Board of Peace, which will be chaired by me and include the most powerful and respected leaders throughout the world. This will go down as one of the biggest approvals in the history of the United Nations, will lead to further peace all over the world, and is a moment of true historic proportion. The significance of this resolution is emphasized by many public figures and political commentators, even those from agencies usually critical of Donald Trump.
President Donald Trump has scored an important achievement at the United Nations. The UN Security Council has given its backing to his Gaza ceasefire plan. This plan took effect just over a month ago, and since then the fighting between Israel and Hamas in Gaza has largely died down. The two sides have also carried out a number of exchanges of hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Now, this vote at the UN sets the stage for the U.S. to move forward with its second phase for the longer-term phases of this ceasefire. That includes the establishment of an international security force, the formation of a new Palestinian government, the disarmament of Hamas. It even calls for a potential pathway to a future independent Palestinian state.
These last two issues will be problematic. This is already evident from the initial reactions in both Israel and Gaza.
My son Yakir Hexter was killed in Khan Yunis by Hamas terrorists on January 8th, 2024, protecting innocent Israeli citizens. So the decision at the UN is supporting a terrorist state, and all of the Israeli soldiers who are protecting innocent people died for the free world and to combat evil. The Palestinian state is masquerading as a state. It's a terrorist state, and it's a terror organization.
On the other hand, the resistance concerns two issues. First, the peacekeeping forces and the Peace Council. We oppose this resolution because we do not want foreigners to rule our country. We, the inhabitants of this country, have priority. We want to rule ourselves, because only the inhabitants of this country really know how to do it. Secondly, and much more importantly, Hamas will not agree to lay down its arms, which was one of the conditions for maintaining the ceasefire. We reiterate our rejection of the Security Council resolution on the Gaza Strip and its future because it undermines the unity of the Palestinian political system, imposes a new trusteeship on the inhabitants of the Strip, and merely replaces the previous occupiers with new ones. Except that Hamas is quietly rebuilding its structures in Gaza. This is according to representatives of the Palestinian government who are keen to maintain peace. Officially, the Palestinian government fully supports the American efforts.
The UN resolution is a first step in a long road towards peace. That step was needed because we could not embark on anything else before we had a ceasefire. So the ceasefire is important, and it has been important for saving Palestinian lives, because we know that every day of delay meant more killings of Palestinians.
Israel also officially supports the resolution. In fact, it officially gives the green light for Palestinian self-determination in the future, in cooperation with Israel.
It's a very historic moment, because if you look at the trajectory of a war that was brutally launched against us on October 7th, 2 years ago, and with the heroism and bravery of our soldiers and our commitment to change the reality here so that this does not recur, and to rebuild Gaza and enable the people of Gaza to have a decent life.
Except that this is a mere theory and diplomatic courtesy. Representatives of the army and the Israeli government have repeatedly emphasized that disarming the militants is a prerequisite. If Hamas does indeed rebuild its structures in Gaza and decides not to lay down its arms, Washington's entire plan would collapse. It is also difficult to imagine any country risking seeking a peacekeeping mission to areas controlled by a terrorist organization.